Good morning. My name is Chris Fox, and today we're talking about why I don't like levels in role-playing games. And I'm talking Dungeons and Dragons and similar RPGs, many games, Pathfinder, Rifts. Almost every RPG out there uses level-based systems. So why don't I like them, and what do I like instead? Well, I am much more of a fan of games like Shadowrun or the Magitech Chronicles, which have more free-form character development. When you get experience, you choose where you're going to spend it, and you buy only the things that you want to buy. If you want a specific spell, or ability, or skill, or attribute, you can simply purchase that, and you spend from your total pool of awarded experience. It's a pretty straightforward system. Levels require a little bit less work on the behalf of the players especially, where they just, are told, okay, you've hit this milestone, here's what you get. And they have to do less thought. And a lot of players do like that, which is an advantage of level-based systems. But the downsides are what really get me. And the biggest downside comes from scaling. So if we take a typical D&D campaign, at first level, if, let's say, I'm facing a kobold, and that kobold's got a crossbow, and I have 8 hit points, I fear death. That kobold can kill me. If there are 3 kobolds, now I'm really terrified because probably one of the 3 is going to hit me, and 1 shot might kill me, 2 is definitely going to get the job done. As a player, if I understand the math of the situation, I know, oh crap, this is going to be a real challenge. In a level-based system, you have to scale every time you level up. So if you take that same character, and let's say they've leveled a few times, now they're 5th level. And now they've got, let's say, 30 hit points. If those 3 crossbow bolts all go off and all hit, they're probably going to survive, and they know this. And during that same time period, their power level is increased. So not only can they survive these puny attacks, but they're probably going to have some sort of response that's going to kill 1 or more of those kobolds. And so those kobolds are no longer a threat. And you'd argue, when you look at levels in RPGs, that makes a lot of sense, and it does. The problem comes at higher levels. When you hit a certain level, things no longer make sense, and the internal consistency of the system begins to break down. So let's take our D&D campaign. Now I'm 20th level, and you drop me from orbit. And I'm wearing Boots of the Cat, very common magic item in Pathfinder. I take 20 points of damage on landing. I don't fear falling from orbit. Much less the guy with the crossbow, the poison crossbow no less, pointed at my eye. Once you hit a certain level of hit points, you don't fear that, and the immersion that was part of your role-playing game is gone. In a system where there are not levels, you don't see the same kind of hit point bloat. You don't see the same kind of stacking of attack bonuses. So let's take, fighters in D&D. You get +1 every level. That just keeps going up and up and up. And at the same time, they're getting magic swords, which are getting bigger. So you're eventually going to get up to that +5, and they're going to find magic items to further increase their strength. They're going to get that into the mid to high 20s and maybe even the low 30s. It's just going to get insane if you're playing something like Pathfinder. Those bonuses stack and stack and stack. And you get to a point where it's just ludicrous. Like a fighter could have something like a +45 to hit. And that means that your thief in the party is never going to be able to hit. Not ever. They're just not going to have a high enough bonus. And so that thief character is going to be frustrated because the warrior, the fighter, is going to be the only person that can actually hit if you put an encounter against them that's going to challenge the fighter. And if you don't, then the fighter's just going to laugh at it. And they're not even going to have to roll. They're just going to hit on a 2+. So the stacking bonuses and the inflating hit point pools are a real problem. And initially what I did to combat this, and it worked pretty well. So if you like any D20 system from, any flavor of Dungeons and Dragons to Pathfinder, there's something called the E6 rule set. You can look this up. It's Epic 6. And what it does is it caps the character level at 6. So your game functions at normal, but when they hit 6th level, they stop advancing. And they don't get more hit points, and they're not getting +1, to hit per level, and they're not getting higher tiers of spells. But you award them other things. So you may give them, if you're playing Pathfinder, you're going to give them extra feats. You may eventually give them extra skill points, whatever you think is appropriate in your campaign. In mine, if we were playing, say, the Magitech Chronicles, we would give you catalyzations. You would go to the body of a dead god and gain magical power. So being capped at 6 level wasn't such a big deal. But what it meant is your super powerful character always feared falling off of a 20-story building. They never thought, oh, that's no big deal. It's going to take like 20% of my hit points, then I'll just stand up and walk away. That's always going to be something that you're afraid of. And I think it should be in any game that I want to play, especially a fantasy game. I guess maybe doubly so if it's a science fiction game. You want internal consistency, and your players can sense when it's not there. And, not everybody worries about this stuff, and that's fine if you're not one of the people that does. But anybody who really craves internal consistency, levels have made that so difficult for me to capture in my storytelling. So for those unfamiliar with the channel, I write novels. And when I'm writing my novels, I need everything to make sense in my head, how it would all work. And so that's why internal physics matters so much to me. And why levels ultimately didn't work. And even though E6 got closer to where I wanted to be, we ended up leaving it behind and moving to a more freeform system like Shadowrun. And that's why in the final version of the Magitech Chronicles, that's the system we use. You get experience and you spend it to purchase what you want, but your hit point total's never going to go up that much. You'll start with between 20 and 50, and if you're really focused on it throughout a campaign, you might get up to like 60 or 70, but you're not going higher than that as a mortal until you become a demigod or a god. You're sort of capped in that way. And that preserves a certain set of realism. You can become powerful and you can matter, but you're not immortal, and you can't ignore the scenery and pretend that you're playing a video game. And that preserves a level of immersion that I'm after in my games. I want it to be about the story and about who your character is and who they become. I want your character to think like they would in the world. And in the real world, if you were this character, you would fear combat. Nobody wants to get into a firefight. No matter how skilled you are, if there's an easy chance that you can die. I definitely like games that make players cautious in that way. And it is a lot of fun because, you see more planning tactically from players where they have to think about how they're going to approach the situation because they do fear, the deaths of their characters in a way that in mid to higher tier Dungeons and Dragons, they stop. Most encounters become trivial for them. Anyway, guys, I'd love to hear what you think of my ranting and to hear your own take on levels. Do you like them? What do you think the advantage of levels is? Do you agree with what I'm saying the disadvantages are? Have you played games where you feel like levels have worked? I'd love to hear in the comments. All right, guys, I'll see you next week.